Yeah, here we go now, baby. We are right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Friday edition of Before You Bet right here on the Cowboys YouTube channel. Make sure you smash that subscribe button right down there. A bit of a different setup here today. Scrambling a little bit, having some technical issues, I guess you could say. So we're doing this off the phone. It will not impact the picks. Probably, hopefully, it won't impact the show in any way either. So week 18 of the NFL season, it's a little tricky, but there's still some pretty good betting spots here. I think if you watched the show yesterday, I gave out picks for each of the games on Saturday, so you can go back and watch that show if you want to get some insights there for the Saturday games. But today's show, I think we're primarily sticking to the games on Sunday. It's going to be me, Ro, me, Hitman, and then just me doing NBA. Two spots I like in the NBA tonight. So let's get into it here. Let's bring in my guy, Ro, in his traditional spot here on Friday. Ro, how you making out today?
Pretty good. Pretty weird week for betting football, but hopefully we got some winners for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to hit lead off here for us, Ro, a spot that I like very much. I'm going to take the Bengals to go over their team total of 22.5 points. So they are, of course, hosting the Cleveland Browns here. And the Browns defense is getting crushed on the road this season. 29.4 points allowed per game on the road. 6 of their 7 opponents on the road have topped this number of 22.5. They are a dramatically different team on the road compared to at home. And Cleveland's top defensive players expected to sit. No official announcement yet, but they're not starting Joe Flacco. They're resting him up for the wild card round. You'd assume they would do the same with their other top players, or at least limiting the amount of time they see on the field. And last chance here for Jake Browning to make an impression before free agency. He's an exclusive rights free agent, which is a lot different from traditional free agency. But still, this is a guy who's shown a lot of promise. 3 separate 300-plus yard passing games. It was only really bad in one game, too, that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's been a lost season here for the Cincinnati Bengals, absolutely. Bad start, then Joe Burrow goes down once it looked like they were going to get things going. But I do think that they will finish the season on a strong note here on their home field. Okay, Ro, you have a play for this game as well. A bit of a weird one, but maybe a good spot. What are we on here?
I'm taking the Browns' first drive to end in a punt. You can get that at minus 135 over at Bet365. I've been all over these first drive punt plays this year. I've given them out on this show a few times. Every time I see a team total that is extremely low, but I want to fade the offense, it's a nice little option to look at, especially if that offense is going to struggle early in the game. I think that's definitely going to be the case here. You already mentioned that the Browns are expected to rest a bunch of players, including Flacco. That's the big one for me. Joe Flacco really helped elevate this offense. He took it from really struggling after they lost to Deshaun Watson to being a pretty good offense. But now Flacco's out and Jeff Driscoll is in. I mean, this guy's a career backup and practice squatter who they signed just last week. So he's not going to have any chemistry with any of these guys. Probably going to be running a very vanilla offense. You look at some other guys on the Browns have on offense that could miss this game. Look at that practice. They had no Amari Cooper. I think Elijah Moore was limited. David Njoku, I believe, was limited as well, either limited or didn't play in practice at all. And then all 3 interior offensive linemen are dinged up as well. So you can definitely see them giving some rest to a combination of any of those guys, which is really going to make this offense struggle early.
Okay, let us keep on rolling here into New England, where the Jets are in town. Very, very low total for this one, so messy weather is expected. No playing the total for me, but I will take the home team Patriots to cover that 1.5 spread. So New England, they're on their most competitive stretch of the season here, 2-2 in their last 4 games. Only losses coming to Buffalo and the Chiefs in that stretch. No real shame in that. The defense was actually great versus the Bills last week. A bit of a misleading final score. They held the Bills to just 281 total yards. My question about the Jets here, have they nailed it in? 28 or more points allowed in 3 straight games. I think their defense is completely overrated. They've actually allowed 27 or more in 6 of their last 9 games. They were horrific versus Joe Flacco and the Browns last week. 7.4 yards per play allowed. And then, come on now, 15 straight wins for the Patriots over the Jets. Jets have scored 13 or less in 4 of the last 5 games against the Patriots. 14 straight losses for them in New England as well. And Robert Saleh, my favorite head coach, 0-5 straight up and ATS against Belichick, who I think is coaching his last game as head coach of the New England Patriots here. So I will take the Patriots to cover that spread. Okay, we go back to Roe here. What do we got next?
I love the Bucks in this spot, taking them at minus 4.5, win and into the playoffs for them, playing against the worst team in the league. They were in the same spot kind of last week. They could have beaten the Saints and clinched the NFC South. They lost that game, but the big reason for that was turnovers, -4 turnover differential. But they actually entered that contest with the best turnover rate in the NFL at +10. So I'm expecting a much cleaner game from them against a Panthers team that ranks dead last in the league in takeaways. That, of course, is not the only area where the Panthers have been dead last in the league. Worst record in the league, worst ATS mark, average scoring margin of -10.7 points per game. I mean, this has clearly been the worst team in the league all season. It briefly looked a few weeks ago like maybe they had turned the corner. They beat the Falcons. They almost ended up upsetting the Packers. But if you look at those games closer, the Falcons game was nasty weather game where they ended up kind of winning on the last second with just 9 points in the game. Packers game, they needed a career game from Bryce Young in that one and 2 late touchdowns. That's the only thing that really made it close. And then last week, they kind of went back to what they've been all season. They got absolutely crushed by the Jaguars, 26-0. Young reverted to his usual awful play, just 112 passing yards. And that's going to be a big thing in this one. We know the Bucs' biggest weakness is their pass defense, but this Panthers offense can't take advantage of that. They're averaging just 167.1 passing yards per game. And the Panthers defense hasn't been good either. Surrendered 26 points, more than 300 yards to CJ Beathard and company last week. So I don't see them really getting up for this game, and I think the Bucs are going to be extremely motivated in this spot.
Okay, let's keep on rolling here. A total that I absolutely love here in Arizona. The Seattle Seahawks are in town. This game has a total of 47.5. I am on the over absolutely. 7 games in Arizona this season. 7 overs in Arizona this season. Average combined score 55 points in those games. We've seen 5 of 7 Cardinals opponents score at least 31 points in Arizona against them this season. And check out this pattern of explosive offensive performances for the Seahawks when playing indoors. This season, we've seen them score 37 in Detroit, 35 in Dallas. Last season, 31 in Arizona, 37 in Los Angeles, 32 in New Orleans, 48 last season. And both of these defenses are god-awful in 2 key areas. They both stink on third down. They're dead last and second to last in third down defense. And they are 25th and 26th in the red zone. So expect both teams to be able to extend drives. And if they get into the red zone, when they get into the red zone, expect touchdowns, not field goal attempts, over 47.5 in Arizona. Ro, let us keep on going here. A few more picks each. What are we looking at next?
I'm looking at Vikings Lions taking the first half over 22.5. I'm glad you touched on the Seahawks and how many points they score indoors. Lions are the exact same way. But you look at that defense, of course, that Lions defense has been awful since week 7, 30th in the league in defensive dropback EPA. They gave up more than 400 passing yards to Nick Mullins a couple of weeks ago. Mullins is back at quarterback for the Vikings. We know he's a turnover machine, but he can attack downfield. And the thing about being a turnover machine is that means that points can also come back the other way. We know this Lions offense can move the ball, averaging almost 32 points per game when playing in dome stadiums this year. The over is 8-2 in those games. So earlier this week, I was leaning towards the game total, especially with Dan Campbell saying that he was going to play all his starters in what's essentially a meaningless game. But I'm a little bit wary of that now. Big red flag for me is seeing Jared Goff's passing yards total at sportsbooks sitting at 223.5. That's easily the lowest number of the year for Goff. The second lowest was about 20 yards higher against Chicago on the road. We saw his passing yards total at 256.5 2 weeks ago against the Vikings. He went just above that. He's averaging more than 270 passing yards indoors. So the big reason here is that books are definitely thinking he's not playing the entire game. And that's definitely something to consider. So I'm going to take the first half over instead.
Yeah, I love playing the Lions after a loss, 7-0 against spread after a loss, going back to last season there, but a different type of game situation. So I think I'm going to stay away from that spot here this week and save that for next season. Okay, my final NFL pick of the show today. I got a couple for NBA here shortly, but I like the Cowboys to beat the shit out of the Commanders. Let's not sugarcoat it. The Commanders have been getting absolutely stomped at home all season here. The Bills beat them by 34. The Bears beat them by 20. Tommy DeVito and the Giants beat them by 12. The Dolphins beat them by 30. The 49ers beat them by 17. Last week, they're allowing 33.4 points per game on their home field. 2 weeks ago in New York, they allowed the Jets to score 30 points. Now, a lot is made out of the Cowboys' issues on the road, but you got to keep in mind their issues on the road have primarily been against good teams. They lost to the 49ers, the Eagles, the Bills, the Dolphins. They weren't really good in those games. But when they played bad teams, bottom feeders, they destroyed them. They beat the Giants by 40 in the season opener. They beat the Panthers by 23 in Carolina. Quite simply a game between one of the best offenses in the league versus probably the worst defense. Dallas cannot afford to take any opponent lightly right now. Plus, the division is on the line here. They're kind of limping into this game. It should be 3 straight losses for Dallas. They had a little bit of luck, though, last week against the Lions. And they can win the division if they win this game. And if the Eagles lose, Eagles haven't looked so good lately. And let's not forget, they destroyed the Commanders 45-10 back on Thanksgiving. Yes, that game was in Dallas, but I think they beat them up and try to go into the playoffs on a good note. Okay, Ro, bring it in for us here. Bring it home. Your final pick of the show. What are you looking at?
Probably the biggest game of the week, Bills, Dolphins, for all the marbles in the AFC East. I like the under 48.5. Now, you're not getting the best number here. This number was up just above 50 earlier in the week, but I still like it at under 48.5. This Bills offense has looked really sloppy over the last few games. They've also become really run heavy. Last 3 weeks, they're rushing on 62.7% of all plays. That's easily the highest in the league, 9 points higher than Pittsburgh. You've got definitely some issues with that offense. Josh Allen's dinged up. Neck injury to worry about. He might not be his usual running self. Finger injury seems to have been throwing his accuracy off over the last few weeks. Big red flag for me has been Stephon Diggs. He's really seeing his role shrink. Something's going on there. I'm not sure what. They're kind of shutting down questions when reporters are asking them. But you look at the last 3 weeks, he's seeing less than 60% of snap share. He's got over 50 receiving yards just once in his last 7 games. So I don't know if Diggs is injured. I don't know what the issue is, but this offense has not been rolling. Thankfully, the Bills defense has picked things up, getting a bit healthier on that side of the ball. Holding opponents to just 17.5 points per game and 4th in the league in defensive EPA over the last 4 weeks. Now, as far as the Dolphins go, lots of injuries there as well. Definitely some injuries on defense, but also some injuries on offense. Jalen Waddle, it looks like he's not going to play. Mostert hasn't played in practice this week either. Same with Tyreek Hill. I do expect Hill to suit up. He's been playing through that injury, but at the same time, he might be a little bit distracted. He had that house fire to deal with as well this week. And then you're looking at 4 offensive line starters for Miami that have also been limited in practice. So lots of reasons for me to like the defense this year, especially in what I think is going to be a really intense rivalry game.
Yeah, things aren't coming together for my Miami Dolphins at the right time of the season here. That Tyreek Hill's house catching on fire might be the cherry on top of the shit Sunday for them here. But we'll see. Fade the narratives. Take the Miami Dolphins, maybe. At the start of the week, I did think that the +3, it was a +3.5 spread at the start of the week. I did think that was a bit of an overreaction. Maybe not so much anymore. We'll see if they can get Waddle back in the lineup. That would be key for them. So we'll see what happens there. Ro, we will leave it at that, but we will catch up with you again next week. We're going to have some much more meaningful games to discuss next week. Will be the wild card round, where both your Detroit Lions and my Miami Dolphins will be playing, regardless of what happens this week. Hopefully the Dolphins will be playing at home, though, next week and not going on the road to Kansas City. We're going to need a little bit of luck, some bounces. Sometimes you get those, though, when Josh Allen is the opponent. So we will see on Sunday night. But thanks again for joining us. Best of luck with those bets, and we will catch you next week.
Best of luck, Joe.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's keep on rolling here into my next guest, professional sports bettor, Hitman, at home. Not another edition of Dude, Where's My Car? Hitman, let's start with this. You had 3 bets that you want to get into, but as we know, week 18 is a bit of a tricky one. It's a bit of a a funny one. Who's going to sit? Who isn't? What's the motivation for some of these teams? Some have something to play for, some don't. I see a lot of talk on social media about the contract incentives and incorporating those into your prop betting this week. Any general advice for the listeners, the viewers out there?
So probably like 5-6 years ago, I would have told the viewers that you want to look up these incentives and you want to bomb stuff. Like if a guy needs 4.5 catches, like we think of the Rob Gronkowski thing from a few years ago. He told Tom Brady on the sideline, I need one more catch. They got it for him. The difference between now and that time period is this stuff is just so known. It's so talked about. And like when stuff is like so publicly available and talked about like this, it gets accounted for in the odds. So I think that you got to be really careful with a lot of the incentive stuff. There's talk about like, Devin Singletary needs 130 rushing yards or whatever it is to get a bonus. Well, it's irrelevant because the Houston Texans are playing for the playoffs. They're not going to alter their game plan to get Singletary his rushing yards. So what I would do is I would tell the viewers to be very cautious with this stuff. There still might be like 1 or 2 situations where you're going to find value, but the most of it right now in 2024 is garbage, to be honest. And then the other thing that I would say is keep an eye on, for the live betting, on what teams are doing during the game. You might see a team will pull starters at some point. A lot of opportunities in the live betting market.
Yeah, good stuff there. And like I said yesterday on yesterday's show, if we know about it, well, the sports books know about it too, right? So let's get into some of these picks. You have a prop you want to break down for us here. Nico Collins receiving yards. What are we looking at here?
I like the over on Nico Collins receiving yards. So, Joe, no team plays more zone than the Indianapolis Colts. What has Nico Collins done against zone? Well, since Tank Dell got injured, Nico Collins has a 33% first read target share, which is one of the absolute highest in the league against zone. And he has 6 yards per route run. Like 6 yards per route run is absolutely insane. Like 3 is a good number. So to be that high, now obviously it's not sustainable, but it just goes to show that when Nico Collins faces zone coverage, that's the guy that CJ Stroud is looking to get the ball to. Indianapolis also plays with a super fast pace, so opponents tend to get a lot of play volume when they play against them. And I think that he's 100% back from his injury. Last week, went for 7 catches, 80 yards. Essentially all of it was in the first half as CJ Stroud didn't have to throw much in the second half. I think that Nico Collins is the guy to look over against his fast-paced Colts team.
Okay, next up, I think this is the first half play you've given to us all season. I'm sure you've made plenty of others, but in regards to your best bet, you like the 49ers first half -2.5 with the Rams in town. Tell us why.
Yeah, so this line varies a lot of places. There's -2.5, like -120, as good as I can see right now. There's also some threes, -110. I think that the threes, 110, are acceptable as well, though obviously they're not as strong. But my handicap on this one is that the Rams, they're not playing for anything in this game. We know that. Like they're playing, like they're openly talking about we're going to get Puka Nacua 4 catches, probably got a lot of just shovel passes to get him his rookie record. And obviously the Niners aren't playing for anything either. But the Rams are the team that have announced that like 7 of 8 of their top starters are not playing. The Niners have only announced Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey out. Deebo Samuel has said that he's playing in this game. Like Kyle Shanahan's been very adamant. If you look back to what he said about bye weeks last year, he said that it's his belief that guys can be rusty if they sit for this long. He referenced some prior times where that happened, whether it was Peyton Manning's Colts or he said his father's Denver Broncos would sit guys before a bye, and it didn't work out. So I think that we're at least going to get a really strong effort from a lot of Niners guys in the first half. Like probably Trent Williams sits. We know Purdy and McCaffrey are out. Probably Bosa will sit, but I think we're going to get more guys at least than the Rams in the first half, and we're going to get a better effort from the Niners than we do the Rams in the first half of this game.
Okay, next up, the Bears trying to play spoiler, taking on the Packers. We have a 3-point spread, and you like the underdog, the Bears. Tell us why.
Yeah, isn't this game a little reminiscent, Joe, of that Lions-Packers game last year?
I remember it well.
And the Lions how good were the Lions playing up before that game? Really well. And that's been the Chicago Bears. Like, they've been playing legitimately really well in the back half of the year. The Bears defense, it's week 5, is 3rd in EPA. They're 1st in explosive play rate. We know that the Bears have full motivation in this game. Like, they hear all the stuff about Green Bay owns them. They want to play spoiler in this spot. Green Bay has some injuries to their receivers. Don't know how effective Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed are going to be. And then this Green Bay defense, like, I know that they had a good game last week against Minnesota, but this is a defense. I spoke about this when we talked about the total last week. Against the Chiefs, Giants, Bucks, and Panthers, the Packers defense allowed an explosive play on 16% of plays, which is the average of the 49ers. So we said essentially the Packers defense has turned those 4 teams into the 49ers. And look at how teams like the Panthers have played when they don't play against Green Bay. Look at how Tommy DeVito plays when he doesn't play against Green Bay. Look how Baker Mayfield threw for almost 400 yards. And look at how he plays when he doesn't play Green Bay's defense. This is still a really bad defense. Chicago's hot right now. I think Chicago +3, good wager, potentially play spoiler to Green Bay.
Okay, so speaking of the Bears, they're going to have a big decision to make here in the coming months. What do you think they're going to do at quarterback? You think they're going to hang on the fields or draft somebody?
I get both sides of it, but when you have the opportunity to draft a quarterback that, like, I don't watch much college football, but from like what the draft guys have said, Caleb Williams is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, probably. Yeah. When you have like a chance to get a once in a 10-year guy, like, I don't see how you turn that down. I don't, because if Caleb Williams ends up being that once in a 10-year guy, like, how do you live with yourself that you passed up on a prospect like that? I don't see how you could pass up on him. So I think that it probably, and especially you get him on the rookie contract, you don't have to pay Fields. Then you get some type of compensation back for Fields. I think that you have to take Caleb Williams if I'm Chicago and keep the pick.
I tend to agree. I think maybe we're seeing some prisoner of the moment type of stuff here with Justin Fields. Like, we are almost 3 entire seasons into this at this point. And yeah, he's got a tremendous highlight reel, but I think the bigger sample size shows that he's probably not the guy long term. So we'll see. Maybe someone will blow their socks off and offer them.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will, but
yeah, absolutely. Okay, last question. Of course, the 2 favorites to win the Super Bowl are the 2 number 1 overall seeds, the 49ers and the Ravens. Anyone outside of those 2 that you think has a good shot at winning the whole thing?
Don't count Mahomes out. I mean, they have the best defense that they've had in a long time. Like, he doesn't have to be Superman to win with this Kansas City team. Some of the past years with their defense, he had to be Superman. He doesn't have to this year. Like, they just need to improve their offense just a little bit. And like, they just got to be a good offense. Like, the 5th, 6th best offense for the Chiefs with this defense is a real threat. So for me, I say, I'm probably going to say this every year during the entirety of Mahomes' career. I feel like they've been my pick every year I do a show since Mahomes has been the quarterback, but I'm not counting out Mahomes. That would be my pick other than those 2 favorites would be Kansas City.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked either. Everyone knows the story with Lamar Jackson. He hasn't been really good in the playoffs up until this point of his career. It would kind of be nice maybe to see him get over the hump. And Josh Allen, it seems like him and the Bills can only get so far when they get into the playoffs.
And they might not even make the playoffs.
That's it too. And it's kind of the same thing with the 49ers. It always seems like something happens to them at this. They have a fantastic regular season. Then last year they ran out of quarterbacks, for God's sake. So who knows? Yeah, it's going to be a funny playoffs. NFL is always very unpredictable, but I guess that is the fun of it. So Hitman, we'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot for joining us, but we will have you next week where we will be breaking down our best bets for the wild card round.
All right. We're looking forward to it. Have a good week 18, Joe, and good luck to your Dolphins.
Woo! Yes, sir. All right, my man. Good luck to you as well. Okay, let's wrap up here on this funny show here where I'm recording off of my phone. It doesn't look too bad. A bit of a funny angle, I guess, but we are pulling through. So two bets that I do like in the NBA tonight, a couple of angles that I absolutely love here. We're going to start with the OKC Thunder to cover the 5.5 point spread in Brooklyn versus the Nets. So check out the spot for the Thunder. They're 7-1-1 against the spread after a loss with some very impressive wins in these games. They are coming off a loss in Atlanta, a game that they were never really in, surprisingly. But they do have some great bounce-back performances. Wins over the Suns, Lakers, Warriors, Nuggets, and T-Wolves this season in games after a loss. And you dig into the stats, not even close here. Significant offensive gap. First versus last in both EFG percentage and three-point percentage over the last 10 games. Third versus 27th in points per 100 possessions in that span as well. Then you flip it to the other side of the court. The Nets can't play defense either. 29th in opponent EFG percentage over the last 10 games. OKC is fourth in that category. Something else I like for this game, Brooklyn is getting absolutely smashed in the fourth quarter. They are dead last in fourth quarter point margin in the last 10 games. So if it's tight going into the fourth, don't be surprised to see the Thunder pull this one out. And next up, the Pelicans are playing tonight. So what do you think I'm betting? I am betting on the Pelicans to cover the first half spread plus half a point at home. So no one is hotter in the NBA in the first half than the Pelicans. They are on a 9-0-1 ATS tear in the first half, a league best 12.6 first half point margin in these games. You dig into the numbers here, big gap defensively favoring the Pelicans specific to the first half. Number one in first half opponent EFG percentage compared to the Clippers at 16th. And New Orleans has been strong in recent head-to-heads with the Clippers, especially in New Orleans. They have 7 straight wins against them in New Orleans, so I do expect them to get off to that good start and be at least tied at the end of the first half. Hopefully we can keep that one rolling. Sometimes you hop on these trends in the NBA, these funny ones, these first quarters, these first halves, and just keep on rolling for a long time. And this one's on absolute fire, so we will stick with it. That does it for today. We made it through. My funny setup. Something's going on over there. So yeah, before things screw up here, I will say goodbye to you guys, but I will once again remind you, if you like the show, hit the like button right down there. Make sure you are subscribed to the Covers YouTube channel. Lots of great content here. Best of luck, guys, in Week 18. We will be back with you guys on Monday, where we will be covering the national championship game. We will see you guys then.